to the Waze W10 event here in New York. I am your moderator for the night, your MC for the evening. My name is Baratunde Thurston, and I will explain a bit about what my job here this evening is. I've been asked to facilitate a discussion, to make a few introductions, and just to briefly lay the stage for why we're here tonight, and certainly why I'm here tonight is that I have a deep history with technology, with mobility. I travel 100 to 150,000 air miles a year. I used to be a computer programmer for a few months in college, just a few months. The semicolon would break everything, and that deeply, deeply offended me. I've been in a lot of different careers. I was a strategy consultant for many years, which meant I made really great PowerPoint slides that no one ever opened. That was a really awesome part of my career for some time. And then for 5 years here in New York City, I ran digital strategy at a place known as America's finest news source, The Onion. And we provided all sorts of valuable headlines like "Black man given nation's worst job" on the day President Obama was elected, which I think has been borne out by the fact that a black man was given the nation's worst job. I write the back page column for Fast Company magazine every month. I make screechy sounds with my microphone on occasion to make things more interesting for you. And I'm a director's fellow at the MIT Media Lab. I'm also a Waze user, and I've been using this platform for a really long time. In fact, I don't trust cab drivers who don't use Waze. And I'm like, when you get into a cab and they say, "What do you want me to do? Where do you want me to go?" I'm like, "This is your job. You do this." Like, I'm not going to backseat drive for you unless you don't believe in Waze. And I even added a point to the map this morning where there was a roadblock because I'm one of those people when they say, if you see something, say something. I actually say something. And Waze gives you an opportunity to kind of report back into that app. So by round of applause, how many people here actually use the app? I'm just curious. Clap if you've used Waze before. This is clapping. This is not clapping. This is almost the opposite of clapping. There's literally no sound that comes from hand movement when you do this. I do it with love. I feel like you think I'm really, really ridiculing this guy. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I'm going to introduce someone who's, I would call him the head of Waze, Noam Bardeen. He will set the stage for us even further, and then we're going to have a fun discussion involving people from Waze, from a government that's involved in this program, and from an independent source to answer some of your questions in advance and then give you a chance to ask questions as well. Can we just get a big round of applause for Noam Bardeen? Come on. Oh, such a short distance. Thank you. There's also a movie.
So since we joined Google, my title is actually Chief Wazer at Google. And so you got it very close there. So I'd like to welcome everyone to this event, especially our partners that have come from near and far, near being the LAPD, the NYPD, excuse me. This was there. NYPD, and far being Jakarta in Indonesia. And literally any other corner of the world, we have 10 of the largest cities, states, etc. And when we started Waze back in 2008, Waze was really built on the idea of participatory communities or users or people that care. That's the way I like to call it. And today we call it the sharing economy, we call it crowdsourcing, we call it communities. But really it's people that care getting together for no other reason than to help each other and building something. So a bunch of programmers got together and built Linux, which today is the most powerful operating system, because they cared. And a bunch of people got together and built Wikipedia, which is the most powerful encyclopedia today because they cared. And at Waze, we have millions of users that care, helping each other on our everyday commute and building one of the strongest maps and traffic information out there. This week we released a new feature that allows users to actually begin entering places and locations as we begin monitoring where places are, whether they're open and closed, and really engaging users in this. And the business world, definitely the technology world, has been involved in this space for like 10 years. And what we saw as an amazing opportunity, and especially Diane, who's been driving this for the last 2 years, is the opportunity to take all these skills or technologies or ways of collecting information, sharing information, and applying it beyond the commercial world and into the public sphere. And this is really what we're going to be announcing today with our partners, is the ability to actually engage your citizens collect information from the citizens, share information with them, share with each other, but also share with your local government, and be able to combine data silos that exist in government, allowing them to reach users, and data that users see, allowing them to reach the government. People do care. They care and they want to make a difference, but usually they don't know how. And that's a lot of what we're hoping to bring together here, is a simple way for people who care about their cities to be able to provide that information back to the government and from the government back to them. So to kick things off, we have a video that'll probably explain a little better about what we're actually doing. Thank you everyone for coming.
The thing I have always loved about Waze is that all the information is coming from the crowd. Even the maps themselves were completely crowdsourced, which most people don't know. Everything we do is crowdsourced. That's done by hundreds of thousands of people around the world who volunteer to help make sure that their map is accurate. As we grow, the more information we have everywhere in the world from our drivers. It's an incredible, incredible group of people.
The worst is yet to come from Hurricane Sandy.
When Hurricane Sandy hit, we had no idea that we could play a role in being helpful at all. We got a call on the Friday evening from the White House, and they said, you guys have a lot of users in that area. Is there any way we can reach out to them and see if we can get some information about what gas stations are open or what are closed? To our surprise, over that weekend, we received about 10,000 responses. We were able to pass that information back to FEMA and the White House and make sure that people could get on their way. It was the first that we saw ourselves in the possible role of being able to be more helpful than just saving time on the commute. And we realized it was something that we needed to build out. There was real demand and it was a need. Rio's traffic infrastructure is evolving very quickly, faster than it's a very small infrastructure made for a smaller city that just keeps growing and growing and growing. One day we get a phone call from the head of Rio's Traffic Operations Center, and they wanted to turn to crowdsourcing.
In Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, traffic is a very important issue. We have almost 7 million people here. Implementing Waze was something that we've never saw before. From the first phone call that we have, 2 weeks later, we were there inside of Waze application with APIs, bringing to the Operations Center every information that we agreed to share.
There was a sense that it was magic because you were able to see what was happening where across the entire city. Each city, each country has unique mobility challenges. We're still in the phase right now of learning what are those challenges and how they're unique to each city. This is why we're working with 10 different cities literally across the world to make sure that we have a better understanding, the best understanding we can have around those different challenges. When you can combine citizen information that we bring to the table with the city information, what you have is an incredibly informed citizenship. Together, we'll be ready for anything that happens on the roads, whether it's a hurricane or a World Cup victory. With Waze's Connected Citizen platform, we're ready for the real-time city, because no one knows more about what's happening inside the city than the people who live there.
Let's hear it for moving images on a screen. And I'm going to introduce our panel, actually starting with one of our stars from the video, Pedro Junqueira. Would you please come on up as I introduce you? A warm round of applause for Pedro. He's been the chief executive of the Rio de Janeiro Operations Center since January 2013. Let's both sit down. Okay. And it's awkward because there's a distance, but we'll add more people. We'll add more people in a minute. Pedro also has a job title of Head of Resilience, which I think every city could probably use. Maybe every business, maybe certain households or families could use something called a Head of Resilience as well. So thank you very much for being with us. Pedro, I want to bring up Diane Eisnor, who is from the film as well. Thank you, Diane, the Head of Growth at Waze. She is in charge of international media and local community groups. She's basically headed up this Connected Citizens program. This is her business unit, her baby, her passion. So congratulations on the launch today. And thank you so much for being with us. Diane's been in tech for a while. Are you a cartographer?
Basically.
Basically,
human cartographer.
She's a human cartographer. We'll dig into that a bit later. And our third seat, please, coming up is Assaf Biderman. Thank you very much. From the MIT SENSEable City Lab. Assaf is a technology inventor, author, entrepreneur, and teaches at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He's the Associate Director of SENSEable City Laboratory and is here to provide a bit of a wider perspective. He is not an employee of Waze. He is representing, in some ways, the future and works with cities all over the globe on related issues to connectivity, citizen engagement, and how tech can kind of connect us all to each other and to devices. Diane, can you just go into a bit more detail? I want to start with this idea of information. We heard the word information a lot. We heard the word sharing a lot. Citizens sharing information with their government, which means certain things to people, especially nowadays. What information is being shared? What actually is this connected citizen program exchanging between Waze and these governments?
So the program is, it's a two-way data exchange. But what Waze is providing to the governments is the public alerts, the accidents, the hazards, the flood warning, the closure, anything that's already public that people are adding. We actually don't share anything at all that would be beyond that. Definitely nothing about where an individual is located or who the individual is. In exchange, what we found through working with our different government partners is that they have a tremendous amount of information, not just in their own incidents, but also all of the pre-planned closures that might happen in a city. And not only that, but when you're dealing with construction, it never happens that a street actually opens at the same time it was planned to open or closes.
Never?
And I think never. I really, even if it's a few minutes off,
yeah.
That's some navigation system that's taking you over a bridge that's closed, right? And that's just not going to work. And so we have more than 50 million drivers around the world that are kind of helping us find that. But when we can combine the citizen information with the city and government information, this is a kind of information coming together that we haven't seen at this scale before.
So Pedro, this is going to be a direct and potentially awkward question, but you've been working with this program so far, yes?
Yes.
Is that true? Does it work? What are you getting out of this?
Yes, it does. It works a lot. Well, for us, Waze is like a new sensor, a new way of seeing things. What are people living, facing the streets? We have 600 cameras, for example, in the city, and the partnership with Waze more than multiply this by 10, because if I know that someone is facing a car crash, is on a heavy traffic situation, this can anticipate our efforts, what we have to do, even if it's moving the traffic lights, the traffic lamps from red to green, or something like this, or sending a tow truck, or if we have trees on the streets because of high intensity rain, high wind, all of this, we can get to know, and the best information is the one that comes from citizens, the one that comes from those who are living what they are talking about, without someone interfering in that.
And so if the government of Rio is able to collect information, say about a downed tree, because of a Waze user reporting that, what departments does that information then flow to? Is it emergency services? Is it the repair committees? Is it the traffic lighting systems? Is it all three and more?
Well, the operations center, for those who don't know, it's a building. It's a place where we have those video walls, 30 departments together, the cleaning company, the traffic engineer crew, someone representing the police. It's a whole gatherness. This information is valuable for everyone. Right. When a tree falls over an electricity line, over a vehicle, we need someone doing an alternative route, someone to save that person, someone to turn the lights off and move that electricity line out of it, the communication, the RP team that we have there, the press that we have there. So this information is valuable for the whole operational machine of a city.
Assaf, could you paint the broader picture of where a move like this fits into this idea of the quote-unquote real-time city? Your lab is called the SENSEable Cities Labs. It's about sensors, and you have all kinds of information that you've been seeing. What is this moving us toward, and why, or is this important?
Well, let's take a look at the past, say, 2 decades. We've seen computers becoming smaller and smaller, vanishing into things, right? So cars go online, but buildings are connected as well. Infrastructure is instrumented with more and more technology. Interconnectivity weaves all this stuff together. Now, if you flip it on its head you can really think of the city as if it were a computer in the open air. And that's new. It wasn't the case in the past. And citizens are in the middle of all of this, right? So as technology becomes so close to us, the people, it gives us, first of all, a new opportunity of impacting how a city functions, right? If you can write code that makes a building respond, wow, we can do something new. Synchronize flows, right? You can do something new. Waze is an example of how you can let all this intelligence that's already embedded in the city in the form of what we know just be shared and made use of.
One of my favorite uses of Waze is seeing where police are. And I believe we have some police in the room. Would you please identify yourselves, officers? I think you're required to do that. I believe it constitutionally. No, seriously, where are you? But, you know, I guess I would love, if I'm going to these 10 different cities, all the information sharing, like, can we just know where the cops are as we're driving down the 101 or the FDR? What exactly is the city pumping into the system?
Without calling anyone out here.
We've all had wine. This is good.
Listen, we found that people do share, obviously, where police are, and we found that most police departments we've spoken with like that, and they like it for a couple of reasons. The consensus is we don't want to give tickets, we want people to be safe. And if so, having knowledge is, I'm not kidding.
What about the revenue goals?
I'm not dealing with the revenue side of the house, okay? I'm dealing with the citizenship side of the house. So they want people to slow down, and if knowing that someone is there is going to make them to slow down, then that's a win-win for everyone. I also have police in the UK who use Waze so frequently because the reports from Wazers come in faster than it would come into their own control rooms. So in some cases, they're getting up to 10 minutes earlier to the scene of an accident, which is potentially fatal. So there are all kinds of reasons why this is important, but you know, it's whatever's happening on the road that's going to be relevant to your drive, that's the information that people are sharing with one another. And most of it, by the way, is passive, right? You turn it on, you drive, and then we're collecting the speeds as you drive. So we can know, all right, we're going to send you down this road or that road, how are we going to get you there fastest? Pedro
especially, but anyone, you know, things, technologies and benefits that require a smartphone, that require, you know, a $500 device like an iPhone or an Android phone, subsidized or not, you know, when users are responsible for feeding that system, driving the locations, driving the reports, how do you think, especially in a city like Rio, about the equal distribution? You know, you're not a business, you're a government. You're responsible for all of your citizens, not just the connected ones. So where do you think about, how have you tried to accommodate for that or account for that? What have you seen so far about sort of dark spots on these maps and these reports?
This is a good question. Well, we don't only use one way of finding things out or discovering what is happening. This is a matter of implementing, of putting things together. It's like a double check. So when we have cameras, when we have agents on the ground, when we have the press talking to us, and now with this Turbo Nitro, when we have Waze with us, it's like we have another way of finding out what is happening and where. So to do this balance, this is something like self-regulated on a region that we don't have so many people using smartphones. Perhaps they are much more connected to radio stations and talking to those radio stations about what they are living. And we can feel, even if they are not reporting things, by the speed map, we can sense that too. When it gets warmer, when it gets more red, the way it was being shown in every map. So it's not that we need people all the time reporting. Another interesting thing is that citizens, Wazers, they didn't start using Waze because they wanted to talk to the city hall. This was not the idea.
Right.
First of all, it was a GPS that would talk to them, give the best, not the best direction, together with the fastest route. Perhaps it's not the smallest one. And now they are talking to the city hall, and some of them don't even know about it. Many Wazers in Rio don't know that they are talking to us. So we developed some big data alerts, some dashboards. This is a product of our partnership that we have shown in the last Waze visit. So it's a good question, but don't be afraid because we are double checking what we have to do. It's not a good way of finding things.
Can I just say something?
No, I'm sorry.
I think what you're asking about is accessibility, right? Yeah. And is it fair? And you know, one of the reasons that we have such a diverse group of partners, why it was important to have people from Indonesia and Florida and New York and Rio, is that different cities have a different level of wealth, right? And infrastructure in these cities is incredibly expensive. Most cities can't afford to have sensors in every road telling you what's going on. And even the rich cities can only tell you what's going on in the main roads, right? So this is the absolute cheapest, most accessible way to start to open this up. And so I think that in itself has something innate.
I'll throw in an example.
Great.
A project that's going on between SENSEable City Lab and the city of Cape Town takes cell phone traffic data in order to generate traffic flows and service the poorest of the poor with public transport. It becomes, people become part of the infrastructure in terms of the data that they generate.
Yeah.
We leave behind a digital exhaust that can be useful in so many ways. It's a very economical way of allowing the public, a greater public good.
That's how I think of Twitter, by the way, just digital exhaust. A lot of hot air out there. Yeah.
Can I say a bad word?
Oh, please, more bad words. This will be even better.
It sounds like a bad word. Polis digitocracy. Someone ever heard about it? Perhaps not.
I think it's a Brazilian thing. I think.
This word was kind of developed by our mayor, and the idea
What's the word, though?
Polis digitocracy.
Polis digitocracy.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry? Well, the idea is like this. On the old Greeks, you had people deciding with their old governments in the agoras. You had people there. They went to a specific place to discuss what should they do, this or that. The society started to grow. It got kind of difficult to decide with hundreds of thousands of people. So we started a democracy, or in other countries something similar, or not the same, but you vote for someone to represent you. Now with technology and with lots of demonstrations that we had in our country, people want to be part of it. Again, they don't want only to vote for someone and let that person decide how their lives will be. Polis digitocracy is a new way, this digital way of deciding, a new way of having power.
Direct action. Nice.
Direct action.
Yeah.
And what Wazers perhaps still don't know is that they are helping this idea. How can citizens help a government? How can citizens decide? If every day I have reports of high or heavy traffic in a specific area, every day, this is kind of people talking to me. You should do something here. In the future, perhaps our dashboards, our big data, everything that we do with Waze data in the city, will give people more power to to demand things for us. You should do something, a new construction here, do this or do that. So it's connecting citizens,
So having a relationship like this gives you more capabilities as a government, also gives you more work to do, and you're accountable in a different way now, because people know. You know, I don't expect the city of New York to do things with my Waze information before this deal is announced. Now I know that you know. So so the bar has just been raised. And as someone who's been in this experiment so far, what advice do you have to other cities? Like, how do you prepare for this? And making an announcement is one thing. Actually following through in the weeks and months and years after, you just committed yourself to a whole nother pile of work. Like, what have you learned so far that you want to share with the citizens of New York and Johannesburg and Salt Lake City, the county of LA?
Imagine riding a bike and changing the gear and the wheels. This is something like the way we feel. We have to move in this direction. This is a lost fight if we want to fight against it. People want to participate. We are much more connected. So the tip is prepare yourselves, because you can't fight against this. People will be more attached to the governments. What we had done, and the Operations Center is a way of doing this, is a toolbox that the mayor decided 4 years ago that he had to build, that obliges us to talk to people, obliges us to listen, to feel the city, and we can close our eyes. And we have the press there. We have a dozen of different press media companies, they are not my employees. They can talk bad things about my job. They can listen to us. They can see what we are doing.
And they're in your operations center.
They are
Media is embedded in the
They
operations
have
center.
open access. I can close this door. So this will increase, W10 will increase our obligations and will increase this, this pressure. But this already exists, at least in Rio. People know that they have a tool there that they can talk to, and when things are not solved very fast, they want us to solve it very fast, even if it's a huge crisis, a huge problem.
Especially if it's a huge problem.
Yes, it's a matter of service. When you work with service, the highest level that you have reached will be the ground for tomorrow.
That's right.
Diane, Waze is no longer an independent company. It's Google Waze. And Google is massive and global and lobbies in Washington and has so many interests going on.
Do they? Sorry.
Probably 3 interests, I exaggerated. What is the relationship of this program to Google? What are the city government's relationship to Google? And where does this data sit? Who controls it? Who decides what happens? And the connection to Google, just all things Google, I'm going to toss at you, especially those and Google Maps, which is clearly a related product.
So, I mean, fundamentally, Waze and Google Maps are different in that Waze is about that everyday driving, kind of your co-pilot when you're in the car, and Google Maps is kind of the everything of maps, right? I'm walking somewhere, I'm going on a long road trip, and there are all these different reasons, but Waze is for that. And so we have been building up the ability to take in lots and lots of new information, and we kind of process that, and that data will be available to other parts of Google. For sure. But this is a program that at this time is exclusively run by Waze and is meant to service Wazers. And it's still it's an autonomous mission. But of course they'll have access to whatever feeds we're putting out. They'll be able to have access to that. And we're still navigating it. It's like some governments are so thrilled to be working with an independent unit, and others are really excited about the bigness, the scale that Google can offer them. So we're still trying to figure it out city by city, but we're functioning independently.
Have you learned in your MIT studies and your global travels how users and citizens, let's call them citizens is a better word, I think, actually, respond to this? What experience do they demand? How do their expectations adapt? And how does their level of participation shift when they know that they're a part of something more than just their solo app experience? Like, this is explicitly more of a network and connected to a government function. What have you found in your other SENSEable city studies?
It's an interesting question because this is not the first time people engage in the place where they live, right? We've had town hall meetings when city's size was still manageable, right? So 400 people would get together in City Hall and fight until maybe something gets done. Cities got too big for us as citizens to understand how they're managed. But with this digital instrumentation that's going on through them, all of a sudden things, invisible things, get highlighted. Whether it's mobility-related stuff, energy, resource allocation, emergency response, all the response, so many things, logistics, are becoming highlighted. That people are, taking the opportunity, grabbing it with 2 hands to actually express themselves and participate. I think it's in our nature to care for the place where we are. It's just that now we have a greater capacity to do it.
Can I nominate some cities for this program?
Sure.
Like Atlanta or any major city in China?
So we're probably, we're talking today about our first 10 partners, the real innovators who are out there and willing to do these pilots right now. But I actually have 5 more that have signed on board since we closed the W10. And we're in conversations literally with cities all over the world. So definitely feel free to nominate. The only reason for keeping it small right now is that we have very close working relationships with each one of our partners because we're still building a lot of the technical parts of the platform, still understanding what the needs in Jakarta are and how they're different from Rio or Barcelona or the government of Catalonia. I mean, they're all very unique, and we have to work closely for the next several months to understand this before we can roll out a bigger platform.
So one of the things, and there's no direct benefit to it yet, but Waze users get points for reporting things and snapping photos and marking maps as inaccurate. What is the measure of success for this program For you guys, what are your points? You know,
That's
how do you
a fantastic question.
Yeah.
So, you know, as I was saying, we're still in kind of the research phase. So I have a couple of points, right? One is that already in the state of Florida, we're already live with them. We have increased the coverage of our incidents for our Waze users there by 10%, which sounds like a small number, but we have so many people out on the road, so that's pretty significant improvement in our quality of our data. That's just kind of a baby step. We've got the folks from NYPD that are literally telling us, okay, now the road is open, now it's closed. Knowing that we might be 10 minutes more accurate than anybody else for our users, that's important. So right now, that's all we can do.
You made a gesture with like a phone. Are they calling you?
Actually, WhatsApp.
Okay, so the police are texting you.
The police are so awesome.
Hopefully not while driving.
No, by the way, you know, I had this old-fashioned idea that governments were slow, their legal teams are, but other than that, you know, it's really, there's a lot of governments out there functioning like startups that know they need to take advantage of these technologies. They're getting demand from their citizen bases, and they're really moving quickly and are pretty open-minded. That said, where I want to get to in terms of measurement, right, we're doing this because we want to see how much time do we really save people? What are we learning about the cities, and how are the cities going to respond? And are they going to be able to decrease the time it takes them to remove an accident, to clear a tree, to get people out of floods? Like, these are the real metrics, and I think by next year we'll have a grasp on those.
Assaf, where should they be going? You've seen more of the future. Probably with your reach and the academic basis that you have. What should be next for them? Give them some advice, whether on the city side or the company side.
To me, what's interesting about this is that if you look from at least our experience of working with mayors, we've worked with quite a few of them around the world, is that the day-to-day is like being a plumber in many ways. Right? You take care of the basic needs of that's the 80 to 90% of, you'd agree, right, of the mayor's job is to make sure that you got water, you got electricity, that things work in the city. And it sort of puts a lid on doing anything fancy, right? To get all that help from citizens, right, to accomplish, to learn what's going on in infrastructure, whether it is in terms of mobility, in terms of, you know, water quality. There was a project in Rio, trash pickup and recycling in Seattle and other places, to engage people in providing information about this, maybe even providing service to it, is something that's extremely valuable, and the cities will grab with two hands. Right? So I think for them it's a no-brainer in some ways. What I would like to see this is becoming more than just about mobility. I think that mobility is such a basic need that we all understand, because we experience this every day, and traffic is so tangible. There's a lot more to city infrastructure than just that.
Any tales of caution? Any pitfalls?
I think that one thing we learned from history that's interesting is, you know, go back to Roman era. When the Romans built a new city, they paved the main roads, parceled the land, and let people do the rest. We grew all the way to to modernism, to the beginning of the previous century, and people thought that they could design a place to the last detail, right? Think of Brasilia, right? Think of the new plan of Paris by Le Corbusier, to tell the laundromat where it should be, and to tell the traffic light what color it should be, to really try to control it. And that's failed, right? Life always prevails. So and people always ask, what is it then? Is it about bottom up or top down? It's not either or. That combination of having a top down system that's instrumented because there's centralized decision making and budget, together with the input of everybody, I think is the right way to go. I would be cautious of, you know, trying to navigate this to become a top down effort by cities. I've seen places that try to do that, and that usually doesn't, where life always prevails. People will do something interesting. I mean, Waze never asked any mayor before they started their business. They just did it, right?
Right. Thank you. I think that's actually a good segue to you folks. You've been gathered, you've been paying attention, you've been probably violently disagreeing with everything you've heard, writing very angry questions down. Now is your chance to report obstructions in the road and police, if you've seen them.
Thinking of it, can I just, many of the partners that are here tonight, I'm meeting for the first time in person, right? We do so much of this virtually. I would just love to acknowledge and thank and ask to stand up the folks we have here from Barcelona, from Catalonia, from Jakarta, from NYPD, from Florida, from Tel Aviv. If you could just stand up so that we can see who you are, you can identify each other as well. Please, please, please. San Jose, Costa Rica.
Thank you for that. I found the police officers.
Yeah.
That was a better way. See, I called them out.
That was the whole reason
You're
I
like,
did
no,
that.
everybody who's
exactly.
a partner stand. They see the badges. You're like, oh, those are the cops. That's much smoother. And now, questions. We have a microphone, so please wait for the microphone. And try not to give speeches.
So there is an element of the now, but then there's probably historical data. And using that historical data, can you build predictive models around traffic using that data moving forward?
So yes, you can. That is not our main focus right now. There is some historic information built into how we're telling what route to give you. Is the traffic going slower or faster than normal, right? And that's how we paint the roads. For now, we think that it's really important to focus on the real time, the what's happening now and where. And so this program is really all about that. I definitely think that there's room for the predictive. I think that that's an interesting line to follow. But for us, the real time is the crux of all of this. So that's really where all of our effort is going right now.
Could you talk? I'm interested to know about what you guys are doing with the connected car programs. Specifically, is Waze looking into how cars autonomously will talk with certain cities or informations about traffic situations and that kind of stuff?
Noam?
Wow, she pointed to the chief Wazer. Be careful.
No comment.
Too careful.
He's become a Googler.
Maybe one comment about the connected car. Well, I mean, I don't know much about the Google connected car project, but what's interesting is, you know, the car has become an example because that's the easiest thing to think about. We own cars, so the next evolution of them is that they will become a bit more robotic and more autonomous. But also the infrastructure becomes autonomous. So try to think, what is the autonomous intersection, for example. That's a really interesting concept because, and data needs to come from all sorts of directions, from people, from CCTV, from the car. The autonomous infrastructure intersection could let through so much more traffic than that dumb intersection out there. No offense if anybody's from the city of New York here. Just because it would manage itself ad hoc. And I think that's one of the interesting things you'll see. It's not just about the vehicle, it's about the context.
Right here.
When you take an organic community like Waze and you bump it up against the government, I think there's a risk that the users might feel betrayed. And an example would be TomTom using their data, selling it to police for speed traps. So what steps have you taken to ensure that the Waze community doesn't feel like this is a bait and switch or something that could actually be used against them by governments maybe who turn out to not have the most altruistic intent?
Super important question. One thing is that we don't sell the data. So the first thing we do to keep it clean is make sure that we don't have a business model surrounding it, right? So our goal is to build a better product, to get better data, to be able to share back what we've got. And so it's clear what our business is, right? Our business is we have this incredibly strong community, we make money through advertising, and we're keeping that clean. So I think if you're a company that starts trying to sell that data, then you confuse yourself and it's a different business. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that, as I mentioned, we're only sharing what's publicly available through the alerts. We're only sharing alerts and closures. And it's so clear the benefit that Wazers are getting by the cities unlocking that information's coming back, by the quantity and quality of reports that are coming back into Waze, particularly where all navigation devices fail, which is on the closure side. This is an incredibly difficult problem. So you really need the millions of reports that are coming in from our community that's out there, but also from the governments who know when it's supposed to be closed and when it reopens.
Can I add something?
Yeah, absolutely.
On our side, a city, they have taken care that we don't know who that person is. Every privacy matter since the beginning was already there. And what is the point of reporting a car crash to a community? You want to help other Wazers. When you tell this to a city hall, in my case, you are telling it to other Wazers, but you are telling it to other drivers too, to other agents, many departments, and this helps much more. So if that person was happy by sharing with Wazers, now with the whole integration that we have in Rio, that person must be, I am a Wazer, and I am, but I am in, it's kind of awkward in my case, but if I'm helping to solve a problem, why can't I be more happy than before? So this doesn't feel like the same case of selling data or betraying the community.
I was curious, apps like Ride Scout and Citymapper are trying to do Waze across multiple media, bike sharing, all sorts of modes of transit. Waze has by far a much deeper source of traffic data. So when are we going to see Waze for bike sharing? When are we going to see Waze across all possible modes of transit? And is this sort of the end game for Waze, ultimately, to be the sort of all-in-one mobility, sort of a crowdsourcing app versus just a crowdsourcing traffic app?
I would love to see pedestrian traffic reports. I'm serious. The West Indian Day Parade, Puerto Rican Day Parade, Broadway on any day in Soho.
You should sit in on some of our management meetings. It's a good debate.
It's not always about the police, just sometimes.
So, here's the thing. This has been a debate internally for a long time as well. We think that there's work that we can do there, but the problem that we're solving is incredibly difficult, dealing with things going at 60 miles per hour, congestion issues. There's a very unique set of challenges, and one thing from being from a startup that we're keeping is that we have to focus. We can't do everything at once. We have to keep making something greater, 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 and so right now that's still on driving. I would love to see it as well, but yeah, we'll see.
Maybe you know somebody.
Maybe I know somebody.
Yeah, hi. I guess my question is, you know, this is about connected citizens. I've heard the word Waze community thrown around. I've heard the word participation thrown around. So I've been on Waze for 5 years, and the question I have is, what happened to the group feature? There was, at some point, before I think you were bought by Google, a feature that I don't think it's, no, actually I don't think it has anything to do with it. It just,
Yeah.
I remember it, and now it seems to be gone. But the thing that was so interesting about it was, especially in Europe, people were forming groups around their common commute. And that's connected citizens, if you ask me, in the sort of honest, authentic use of those words, as opposed to just being connected in the sort of, I sent information to you over a connection. So was groups gotten rid of? Is it going to come back? Is there a problem with having people form their own groups on Waze that you decided to sort of downplay it? I think that's one of the most interesting features. It has a lot of potential for creating genuine community.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering what happened to it.
So that kind of also goes back to the idea of focus. We all really loved the groups feature, but it was never integrated properly. And one thing that we do well as a company is if something is not working, we have to rip it out. And I hope it's going to come back stronger than ever, but it was not up to par of what it could have been. I mean, you may have noticed that too. Like the way that you shared the information with your group was very clunky. It was released too early. I also really liked it. It still lives on in the form of teams, and we roll it out from time to time. So because it was never finished, it didn't have the adoption that it required to become to remain such a prominent part of the application. I mean, we'll see going forward, but it wasn't good enough, is the short answer.
All right, that was our last question. There's one more question. Real-time adjustment of my words.
I was just curious, people are giving their information, so it's like, I'm here as a roadblock. not that we're hackers or things, that people do things that are not right. What if someone says, oh, don't go there, and it's a lie? Do you validate the data? Do you, if a user says two wrong things? Well, no,
the street is totally closed.
It's wasted, don't go there.
All the parking for me.
No, it's a good point. And you know, he was talking about points earlier. The more you've participated in Waze, the higher your rank. And so the map editors, for example, they have the highest rank of someone who's just reporting out there. When you have a high rank, you're considered a more validated source. So if you're trying to block a road and you have a very low score, it's only going to be blocked for you until we have more data points. And this is something that's constantly being refined, but that's a very good point, and it's all built into the algorithm of those points and the number of your contributions, and you build up credibility in the community.
And also the not there feature.
And that's good. You can talk to that one.
If you are driving or you are a passenger and someone tells the road is blocked, but you see everything clear, you can say not there. So
any user can say that that's, yeah.
They didn't want to call it the lie button. It's a little softer. And that's more political. It's just not there.
It was there, it was blocked.
It might have been there for them. Maybe you saw it. Maybe you saw a roadblock. I don't see a roadblock.
Maybe you're too pessimist.
Yeah. Could I also, for the Waze employees who are in the room, you guys didn't wear like Waze beanies or anything, so you're hard to spot. And the same way I like to see officers, I want to see the Waze employees. If you're already standing, raise your hands. If you're not standing, if you could stand up, because afterwards people might have further questions. Those are the folks to continue
and please ask them anything,
Yeah.
Flavia, Michal,
there we go. Oh, they're all right.
You can stand. You can stand. Yeah.
Wow, they do stick together. Okay. Great. So thank you. Do you guys have any other comments you want to throw in before we wrap this up? You don't have to, but I want to give you a chance.
No, it's a pleasure for us to be part of this. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you so much. And I'm just thrilled to see everybody in the same room and that we are actually finally kicking this off. It's been a lot of hard work from a lot of people, and I have very high hopes for this program.
Good luck, guys.
Said like an outsider. Thank you very much, everyone.